Okay, hi everyone. Today I'm doing the tutorial that I promised you that I would do on my last video. And as you can see, I'll be drawing down here and talking to you on this little screen. So first thing that I wanted to talk about is paper. Basically, the kind of paper I'm using down there in this video right now is 80 grams photocopy paper, sort of like this stuff here that I sketch on mostly. And the paper that you really should be using is the little paper or some kind of Bristol board. Give me a second, I'll get some to show you. Back. This is the cover of the little paper. It's the 135 grams one. And this is the paper itself. And I don't know if you can see, this is actually one of the sketches for the manga. I'm going to be giving too much away because I only sketched 2 pages so far. Right, going into the video that covered the paper, you should be using some kind of thicker paper and preferably a bigger size, so that way you shrink it down, the picture looks nicer and detailed. Second thing, sketches. As you can see in this video right here, the first 2 panels have rather nice poses, more exposed muscles on Ishida, a more angular pose on Saturn, and overall it's kind of the poses are pushed to the extreme, you could say. And that's kind of what you have to do with manga, you know. The panels, the sketches, the poses, you have to play with the anatomy a bit, you have to push it to the extreme, make it as good as you can. Another thing is perspective. I'm going to be showing you a really good example of perspective in my last panel, so we're going to skip that one out. And layout. Like I just said before, layout is extremely important in manga. I mean, look at all the manga pages you see, I mean, layout is the most impressive thing in the manga you read, isn't it? Because all the American comics and all the other comics that are picked up, they have really boring layouts. They just don't seem to persuade the action good enough when you just have the action happen in a few boxes on a page. And when you play around with those the shapes of the boxes, the width of the outline of the boxes, with some speed lines to the boxes itself, it speeds the action up, it gives it more energy, and you just give that huge push forward. So layout is extremely important. Another thing, line width. That's the most important thing. Layout is second. Line width is the most important thing in manga. I mean, even if you go to, you know, Tokyopop, everyone knows Tokyopop. If you go to their website and try to get employed as an inker, which I did for Tokyopop, you have to be able to do line width. And they stress it, they have a whole paragraph about telling you how you should be able to use line width. They have a whole paragraph about this big on their page telling you need to be able to do line width, otherwise don't even bother applying for this job. So you know, it's extremely important. And going together with line width is your light source. You need to set up your light source early on in the drawing so that you know where to put the thick lines and where to put the thin lines and where to give the gaps in your line work. Because leaving gaps in your line work really will help as well. So, for example, those 2 first panels that I did, they're the bad example of doing line width. There's not enough on there, I didn't follow any kind of light source to them or anything. The lights are ragged, they're not very, I don't know, comfortable strokes or anything like that. And just, those 2 are just an example of how you should not do it. The second 2 panels with the closest from the eye bring kind of the tension, you know, going back to the panels, and the inking on them is smoother. It's still not perfect, still nowhere near perfect, but the inking is smoother, it's more precise, there's more curve put into it. Right now I'm doing Saturn's eyes, I think, yes. And as you can see, Ishida's eyes, although crossed, although angry, they have a calm look to them because the pupils are bigger, the eye itself is bigger. And on Saturn's eyes, where the pupils are much smaller and you have that little spot next to it, he knows that Ishida is up to something, and you can see that Seton is much more stressed about the whole situation. And now going to the last panel, I started drawing Ishida. As you can see, only a faint outline, but still be very careful about it. Drawing the lines of the circles very thin, suggesting the emerging light, and then kind of supporting that with a black sharpie, creating all those focus lines around it, and creating the background with the black as well. Because what Ishida is doing here, he's creating those 3 magic circles around him, and he's using them to blast fire at Seton, and Seton covers things up with a huge rock. So obviously fire is a very, very bright source of light, isn't it? So if you darken up the surroundings and the shades to, suggest that brightness of that flame, and the smoke and everything, and you need to suggest the energy to power the force. That's why we're using perspective in here. That's why we have the Ishida back, in the background, and Seton right in front of you here. You see how that works even with the hands? Perspective, very powerful thing. In movies, in manga, in any sort of animation, everywhere, perspective is very powerful. And it helps you persuade the action and the emotion and the, the scale of the power that person is using, if you want to put it in those words. And as you can see, it's not only the round shapes, because if I only created those round shapes like cloud, it would look like he's shooting out clouds, and that's not very exciting. That doesn't look very powerful. That's why I created those two spikes going off in 3 directions, suggesting the energy like kind of bursting out from it. And you can see that the flames are kind of wrapping around the boulder that Seton created to protect himself. And another thing, if you notice in this inking, I used mostly a brush pen for my fire thing and cloud and smoke that Ishida is shooting out, just because I don't know, we need that energy in it. So if I use the normal pen to do it, it just wouldn't have the same energy, the same power that it does when I just do it with a single swoosh of a brush pen. And I added some cross-hatching on the top because I didn't want to go too detailed there. I didn't want to take the focus away from our main figure, which is Seton in this drawing. And now I'm adding some cross-hatching to the cloud and the fire itself to, give it some sort of dimension, you could say. And as you can see in this panel, I'm being much more careful. I'm doing a lot more work on it. I'm taking my time with it. And it's working out. I think you can say that this panel looks much better than the 2 first ones. And I think any second now I should be starting to do the detail on the boulder, like here. And now what I will be doing is putting some dust on it, some kind of dust effect, like sand and little cracks, little spots like you get in the rocks. And to do that, I'm using the dry brush effect. As you can see, I just took a little dry brush and smudge it around with my brush pen and create that little dust. And then I go on to doing some cross-hatching inside the boulder, go back to doing some detail, and now I'm doing cross-hatching again. Basically what I'm doing with that cross-hatching is suggesting the shadow on that side, suggesting the shadow on it, and trying to separate our main figure, which is Seton in this panel, from the whole background, because the background is real complicated. There's so many lines in it, and I just want Seton that is a rather simple figure in there. I want him to stand out a bit more. So I'm creating all that cross-hatching around to suggest shadow, and as you can see, I didn't create just flat layer of cross-hatching. I tried to do some curved lines and lines at different angles, try to suggest the planes of the rocks and the texture inside the boulder. Right now I'm putting a thick line all around Seton, outlining him to make him pop out from there, and then filling in detail. And as I can see, I had to went back to the top panel because I didn't fill in his beard and didn't cross hatching on his trousers, which kind of suggests the planes of the legs a bit better. Right, and now basically all I will be doing is doing the inking inside of Seton, inside the figure. Picking up all the details, making it look as good as I can, trying to remember that it's all in shadow, so there's not much line width to play around, but you still have to find some spots, you know, to play around with it. You still need to think about it a lot. And that's pretty much it, you know. The picture's done. Thank you very much for watching. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Please, you know, click that little like button. It really makes me feel very happy if you do, because it makes me feel like you appreciate it and you enjoy the video and maybe you took something from it. So, thank you for watching. See ya.